Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Skeletor from Masters of the Universe Origins by Mattel. So this is a line that is currently at Walmart, and HeMan and Skeletor are on the shelves, at least in my area, and this will be available at every store starting next year. So this is the old figures, but done with modern articulation and a few artistic touch-ups, and it is really cool, and this is my second figure that I've reviewed in this line. The first one was HeMan, and I went into a lot of detail on packaging and comparisons and the accessories, and so I'm going to kind of summarize all that, but I'm also going to get into some stuff that I forgot to do in that first video, and so we're going to go into the figure stands, you know, which figure stand might work with it. We're going to go into vehicles like the Roton and, you know, if the old clasp armors will work with it, you know, doing a bunch of compatibility tests. Also might break out Grayskull, so stay tuned. All right, and so let's take a look at the packaging. This figure retails for $15, and it looks gorgeous in this packaging. They are trying to emulate the old Masters of the Universe packaging, as you can see here. And so they've done a really good job of that. But as you can see, I just want to point out, Skeletor on this original card back is called Lord of Destruction, because we kind of figure that if you take a look at him and read the words Lord of Destruction, you can kind of figure out his alignment. But the modern figure, they don't want to take any chances with a modern audience. They want to let you know he's evil Lord of Destruction, because, you know, you might look at this guy and you're like, I don't know. He could go either way. You just, you know. I just thought that was amusing. And the back really just beautifully emulates the old card backs. And I love this new artwork. It is gorgeous. So they've done a fantastic job with this card back, and it's great. You can display it like that. He will stand on his own in the packaging, never have to worry about him toppling over. It's fantastic for a Mentone card, but I'm going to open it right now. And because it's retro style packaging, you do have to rip that blister card bubble off. I had kind of mixed results when I tried to open up HeMan right here last week, and the mini comic was actually stuck to the card, and so you can see I actually have some damage to the mini comic out of that. So we're going to try something a little different here. We're going to try laying him down, and we're going to try to open him up. I'm just going to assume I'm going to have to remove the entire blister bubble to get him open, and we're going to try it that way and hopefully be more successful. All right, and here we go. I'm going to try from the bottom. And the mini comic slid right out that time. So that was a problem only with HeMan, or only with the one I got. So that was a fluke. So I got this mini comic out. There was no sticking, no nothing. So got it out in, you know, as mint condition as humanly possible. So that's really good. I was really worried last time when that mini comic stuck to the card. And so here it is opened, and you've got to cut Skeletor out. So I'm going to do that real quick and be right back. And here is Skeletor completely out of the packaging. As you can see, the paint job on this guy is gorgeous. It is beautifully painted. His armor works just like the old armor, so it should be removable and compatible with the old figure, but we'll be testing that. And as you can see, the sculpting is just quite nice. He really emulates that old sculpt. The only difference is really his face sculpt, and I like the idea of an open mouth Skeletor, but I'm actually going to just go ahead and bring in the old one for comparison. So the difference here, and I wish they would have just kind of emulated the way that they did the paint job on this. The big difference here is these little details in the paint job along the teeth and along and at his brow. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. The lines on the teeth here make it look like there's a guy wearing a mask to me. That doesn't really emulate teeth very well. You know, this, I can't quite explain to you why it works, but it just does. The way that they did the lines on the mouth just work, and I wish they would have emulated that with the new expression. But that being said, it's still a good figure. It's still a good sculpt. I really like it. But just, you know, the head sculpt is a little, you know, well, actually the paint job on the head is a little off to me. And that's okay, because we'll be getting interchangeable heads and we'll be going into kind of the interchangeable parts later in the review. But there will be a Battle Armor Skeletor coming out with completely different head that you will be able to put on this Skeletor, any Skeletor that they come out with. So let's go into articulation. So his arm can move upward, out. He bends at the elbow. And he bends at the wrist. Wrist rotates around. Of course, his head does spin around. And it can look up and down too. And of course, his other arm does the same thing. He rotates at the waist. So you can get that dynamic posing. And his legs can move all over the place. And he bends at the knees, bends at the ankles, and his boots rotate. So he has a good amount of articulation. The only thing missing from modern articulation is the ab cut, and I think that is fine because A, it breaks up the sculpt, and B, there are going to be other figures in this line that it would limit the articulation of because they're going to have full breastplates on. And Masters of the Universe Classics, it was a fantastic collector's line, but the way that they did it, they would cut out the bottom of the armor and then paint the body to try to match the armor to create an illusion where you could still do an ab cut while still having armor on. Wasn't good. And I'll go into that in a little bit more detail probably in another video. I'll probably be doing an overview of Masters of the Universe Origins and my thoughts on this relaunch. But let's just say I'm totally happy without having the ab cut, and I don't think it really belongs in Masters of the Universe. And to go into the accessories, this is his Havoc staff, and this is pretty much the way it appeared in the original toy. And as you can see, it looks great, nice sculpt. And of course, he does have his half of the power sword. So I went into kind of the new design for the power sword in the other video. It is half a power sword, just like He-Man's, and you should be able to combine it with He-Man to create a whole power sword, just like the original figure. He holds it well, and he can get some decent poses with him, just holding it like that, but it is a little short for him. And with the new articulation, he can actually get some action poses with the Havoc staff, which is really cool. He gets a good grip on the power sword, but one thing to note is it is one-sided. So like, for instance, this would look really funny because you have the blank side showing, but he can get some various good poses at different angles with it. And so let's take a look at the armor and removing it. So it's coming off just like the old vintage figure. I could loosen those straps, but the thing about the new ones is you can actually just remove the arms. And there you go. And his bottom half comes off as well. Or you could just pop off his chest. And so both those come off just like the vintage figure, so they should be able to fit on the vintage figure. We'll test that out in a minute, but I want to show you the interchangeable body parts real quick. So here he is in all his different parts. And the legs, the boots do take a lot of effort to pull off, but they do come off. So you can take off the boots, and they're labeled on the inside. You can see the L here, so that will let you know to put it on his left leg so you don't mix them up. And I just wanted to illustrate that Skeletor's clothes and weapons are 100% compatible with the old line and vice versa. So this is new Skeletor wearing the original Skeletor's clothing and holding the original Skeletor sword. And this is original Skeletor with new Skeletor's clothing and Havoc's staff. You can see the difference between how they're colored. So the darker harness is noticeable compared to the lighter purple hood, but it is cool that they are compatible with the old line and vice versa. So that's cool. And as you can see, he looks really cool with the new He-Man figure that I already reviewed. And it's really cool that you can actually get them in battle poses now. And to illustrate how cool he looks with figures from the old line, here he is with a couple henchmen who have not come out yet in Masters of the Universe Classics, but they look really cool with him. All right, I want to break out He-Man for my figure stand test because he's basically going to be Goldilocks. So as you can see, there are holes on the bottom of the feet for the figures, and they should go into figure stands. We're going to try Marvel Legends, and it is too big for this hole. So this is for like a 7-inch scale figure, and that doesn't work. And so this is for 3 3/4 inches, and it's too small. It just slips right out. So we need something just right, and unfortunately I don't own that. I don't know if there are already existing stands for 5.5-inch scale figures, or if this is something Mattel is going to come out with, or maybe just something Mattel will be incorporating in future vehicles and maybe play sets if we get them. I don't know, but it is cool that those holes do exist in the bottom of the feet. So swapping the body parts and the armors is going to open up a lot of possibilities for customization and creating your own characters and kind of mixing and matching different things. You're definitely going to be able to come up with a lot of interesting possibilities as the line goes on and you get more parts. And the removable limbs also create some wicked possibilities for certain battle displays.
Alas, poor He-Man, I knew him well.
And of course I have to test Skeletor with the Roton. So this is vintage Skeletor in the Roton, and I just want to illustrate why this works, because he has those rubber bands on the legs. He can do this kind of pose with his legs. So let's try this with the new Skeletor, and we'll try bending the legs just for sake of argument here, but yeah, he's not really fitting in there. So unfortunately, the vehicles like this that require those rubber band legs just really aren't going to work very well with the new Masters of the Universe Origins. Now, if you're going to try to display them at a high angle, you could cheat and just take off the legs and put them in there like that. But if you're displaying him and anyone can see him at any other angle, yeah, that's not going to look right. So this is the vintage Roton. And so hopefully they're going to come out with a Masters of the Universe Origins version of it that will be compatible with the new figures. They're coming out with a land shark, so that's very hopeful that we'll see other evil vehicles in the line. So for this test, I want you to use a little bit of your imagination. I don't own a Panther, but Battle Cat should be the same thing. So this is vintage Battle Cat with the new Skeletor on top of it, and he can ride Battle Cat just fine. So presumably if you had an old Panther, he would ride it okay. But there is a new Panther coming out, so you will be able to get Skeletor's steed as well. And while I don't have Night Stalker, I do have Stridor, which is the same thing. And here's vintage Fisto inside of Stridor, and you can see what it takes to somewhat sit in Stridor. And here's the new Skeletor inside of the old Stridor, and I would say it works. I'd say that he will be compatible with the horses, so if you have an old Night Stalker, I'd say he's going to be good for that. But hopefully they'll give us a new Strider and Night Stalker in the new line. And so do the clasp armors work on the new figures. So this is my vintage Fisto, and this is his armor, and it looks like it's working fine from this angle, but if we turn it to the side, we can see it's not fully coming together. I think this body sculpt is slightly bigger than the vintage body, so I'm thinking these aren't going to fit exactly like they should, but right now it's passable. It's staying on him. And yes, kids, I do have the vintage Castle Grayskull, and this is the new He-Man in front of the old Grayskull, having the power, and it looks pretty damn awesome. And here are both these figures in a battle pose with the open drawbridge of Grayskull, and it is awesome. So if you have a vintage Castle Grayskull and you want to use it as a display for these two figures, you are definitely going to have some fun here. And testing some of the features of the old castle, yes, Skeletor does get a good grip on that laser blaster. He is hanging off the edge there, but that is just the way it's designed. The old figures hung off the edge too when they were holding the blaster, and of course He-Man is standing comfortably on the top of that tower, and it all looks pretty darn cool. As you can see, Skeletor sits in the Grayskull throne just fine, and the throne can turn, and yes, kids, the new He-Man will fall through that trapdoor just fine, and that never gets old. And they fit in with all the other accessories that come with the original Grayskull too. And while I've got Grayskull out, let me talk about combining power swords. So the new figures and the old figures, their power swords are not compatible. So that's not going to work, but the new He-Man and the new Skeletor, their swords do combine. And so now you have a whole power sword with, one half is Skeletor, one half is He-Man. And according to mini comics lore, you can stick that in and unlock the gate of Grayskull. You could do that with a single power sword, but that's just the way the lore in the mini comics and the early comics had it. Don't know how many people care about that, but just thought I'd be thorough. So overall, I am extremely happy to add a posable Skeletor to my collection. Again, I have a slight disagreement over the way they painted the teeth on the face, but other than that, this is just an outstanding figure. Whether you're looking to augment or replace your current vintage figures, or you're looking to start collecting a brand new line of Masters of the Universe figures, this line is amazing, and I highly recommend it based on these two figures. The others haven't hit my section of the country yet, but hopefully they'll be coming soon. I do have a Battle Cat, though, for Masters of the Universe Origins I'll be reviewing, and might have a couple other things that might be compatible with the line. So definitely got some more reviews coming, so like and subscribe for more videos, and until next time, good journey.